God is writing a story that is unlike any other. He creates all things, pronounces it good, including Adam and Eve, our federal head, the first man, the first woman. So when they cut God out of the equation by eating the fruit, we did too. Your biggest problem, my biggest problem is sin, and sin leads to death. But God promises in Genesis 3:15 that a serpent crusher is going to come. So we need the offspring of the woman who will crush the serpent's head. It's not Cain, it's not Abel, it's Seth, it's Noah, it's Shem. And then we meet Abraham. And it's Isaac, not Ishmael. It's Jacob, not Esau. And it's Judah, we found out. That's where our story picks up now. Abraham was promised three things: many children, a special land, and a child who will bless the whole world. Well, the many children was saved through Isaac, who we almost lost on an altar, and then Jacob and Esau. And Jacob, whose name becomes Israel, he has 12 sons and some daughters. We said the two you need to know about are Judah, because we're looking for the lion of the tribe of Judah, and Joseph. Why Joseph? Well, he's a fascinating guy. He's the 11th son of 12, but he's the firstborn of Jacob's favorite wife, Rachel. So he makes him the firstborn. He gets all the birthright, all the special treatment, ticks his brothers off, and they decide that they're going to kill their brother Joseph. You think you have a dysfunctional family? They're ready to murder their brother. They don't. They decide to sell him into slavery into Egypt instead. I want to just pause for a second though. Remember when God came to Cain and said, "Where is Abel?" And Cain said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And God basically said, "Yeah, you are." Look at the brothers. They're not keeping Joseph. They're trying to kill Joseph. And now they sell him into slavery for 200 pieces of silver. 10 brothers, $20 a piece, basically. Sold him for a couple of lunches at Tim Hortons, which I know didn't exist, but just go with it. So Joseph goes down to Egypt. There he gets bought as a slave by a guy named Potiphar. He rises to the top of his house. Mrs. Potiphar, Potiphar's wife, is apparently a bit lonely. She starts to proposition Joseph, saying, sleep with me, sleep with me. He says no, so she accuses him of rape, and he gets sent to Pretty impressive guy, though, because he climbs his way and earns favor with the prison guards, and pretty soon the prison is under Joseph's command, which is very odd. They don't normally, you want a humanity moment, go to any prison today and see if they let the inmates run the prison. They don't, but Joseph is running the prison. The butler and the baker of Pharaoh are in prison. They have a couple of dreams. Joseph interprets them. One gets out and gets back with Pharaoh, and a few years later, Pharaoh has a dream that nobody can interpret, and the guy remembers, there's this guy in prison named Joseph. He can interpret dreams. They call Joseph. He comes out of prison, stands before Pharaoh. Pharaoh tells him these two dreams. There was 7 fat cows, 7 skinny cows. The skinny cows ate the fat cows, but they didn't get any fatter. What's up with that? 7 good ears of corn, 7 bad ears of corn. The bad corn ate the good corn, but didn't get any better. What gives? And Joseph's like, oh, this is easy. Here's what it means. You're going to have 7 good years of harvest, then 7 years of famine. Here's what I advise you to do. Pick somebody who's wise. Have him store food during the good years, because nobody knows that this famine is coming. If you do this right, not only will you have food for Egypt during the 7 years of famine, but no one else knows. They'll eat all their food, and when the famine hits them too, all the other countries will have to come to you to buy corn and food and grain and everything else. Pharaoh goes, I like the plan. You're in charge. And Joseph goes from being sold by his brothers to the slave block, to the top of Potiphar's house, to the prison, to prime minister and second in command, where he sets Egypt up for the famine. But not just Egypt, so that they can sell to all the other countries. Okay, time out. What has been going on in Joseph's family, who think he's dead, by the way, back on the farm? What's been going on there? Well, lots, but remember, we're really just following Judah. So there's this, you remember I told you about Lot and his daughters, and there are disturbing stories in the Bible? Here's the other one, Genesis 38. So Judah is married, he has 3 sons. The oldest son gets married to this girl named Tamar, and then he dies before they have kids. Now there's this weird thing in the Old Testament called the kinsman redeemer. Here's the way it worked. So there's 3 sons. Son number 1 marries Tamar. Because he dies before Tamar has kids, son number 2 legally has to marry Tamar and have kids with her, but the kids will not belong to him, they'll belong to son number 1. So that's what happens. Son number 2 marries Tamar, but he doesn't like this plan, so he practices this weird form of birth control, ticks God off, kills him. So son number 3 is like a boy, apparently, like elementary school type thing. So Judah tells Tamar, go back to your father's house, wait there. When he's old enough, you'll marry him. So Tamar goes back to her dad's place. Well, Judah doesn't keep his promise. The boy gets old enough, they don't get married. So Tamar's like, I got to do this on my own. Judah, whose wife has died now, he's single. He is a shepherd. He is going to where his sheep are, somewhere over there. And it's time to shear the sheep and sell the wool. He's going. Tamar, sorry, not my story, but here's what happens. Tamar stops dressing like a widow, starts dressing like a cult prostitute. And she goes to where she knows Judah is going to go buy. She's advertising. Judah buys, and they do business together. And then, long story short, Judah gets his daughter-in-law, who he does not realize is his daughter-in-law, but he gets her pregnant with twins. One of these twins is a kid named Perez. That's important. Hold on to that. Messed up story, I know, but it factors back in because I'm not writing the story, Judah's not writing the story, Tamar's not writing the story, God is writing the story, and he is an author unlike anybody you've ever seen. Okay, so time in. Joseph is running Egypt. It's going great. Judah and all his brothers of Jacob's sons are dying of starvation. So Jacob says, go buy food in Egypt. So they go down and buy food from the prime minister, who ironically is speaking Egyptian and stuff like that, is their brother. They don't realize it. They think this guy, he's got an army. Perfect moment for revenge. You sold me into slavery. I now run this place and I have an army. Oh, I'm going to bring the hammer. But that's not what happens. Through a crazy series of events, he reveals, guys, it's me, Joseph. And they're like, oh boy, this is going to be bad. And he's like, no. It's all good. Because in Genesis 50, verse 20, you see this verse that says, Joseph speaking, he says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And that's usually where we stop because it looks better on coffee cups and bumper stickers. But we miss a really important phrase that's after that. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good to save many people alive. Who's he talking about? Well, all his brothers, because he is his brother's keeper. They might not have done their job of keeping him and wanted to kill him and then sold him into slavery, but he is going to keep them alive. But specifically, if you step back a chapter to Genesis 49, verse 10, we read that Judah, the scepter, the ruler scepter, will never leave Judah's family, and one day, one of Judah's family will rule forever. Okay. When we start talking about ruling forever, that sounds like a serpent crusher. So it was really important that we keep Judah alive, even if it was through Judah and Tamar, as messed up as that is. Joseph understands that you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good to save many people alive, specifically Judah, because we need Judah's line to stay alive, because your biggest problem, my biggest problem, is sin and death, and we need the Lion of the tribe of Judah to solve our biggest problem. So, Pharaoh likes Joseph. He's set up Egypt. Everybody's buying food from them, so he set up Egypt as the world power. And he invites Jacob, Joseph's dad, and his brothers to come move into Egypt. Sure. So the whole family, this is the family of Jacob, or Israel. So these are the Israelites. They move to Egypt. Most scholars think at this point about 70 people move down to Egypt. As we turn the page, about 350 years go by and our story has completely changed. And that's where we will pick up with our next episode.